Can't believe I gotta drag this thing out. I hate this watering kinked up hose. Stupid. I can't. Ugh, this is the worst job ever. Water, water, water. Wish it would rain. This is so, ugh. Come on, let's go. Well, today it's our annual I Hate Watering episode. I'm sure that hose is kinked back there. There'll be no water coming out. There's always some point in the season when we don't get the rain we need, and we have to supply the water. So follow me. Oh, this thing's heavy. I guess one of the reasons that I hate watering so much is it takes so long to do it the right way. So on any plant, we want to do this if we can in the morning and at the base. We don't want the foliage to get wet. And so in this case of this tomato, which are very susceptible to fungal diseases, I'm just going to let this guy run for like 10 minutes here and really soak it in. That's the important way to water. Let that water drip down deep and the roots will follow. And when things get tough again in the midsummer, we can bring up what it needs. And while this plant is getting watered, and we've only got about 10 more to do, I want to show you something else in the garden. Well, check out this rose. It's called Easy Elegance Funny Face from Bailey's Nursery. And they sent it to me, I think it was about 4 years ago. And a lot of times when these plants get sent to me, it's during crunch time. And so I try and give them the best spot I can, but I just threw this one in, and it's not in full sun where it would love it. And it is in good soil, but it's never been watered, it's never been fertilized. And just look at the thing, it's going absolutely nuts. I just love the color. It has just a slight fragrance. And it's really cool because the buds open up to like a really strong, deep pink and then kind of fade out to more of a whitish pink. And you can see it's blooming like nuts now, but it will bloom basically most of the summer off and on. Just a great plant. This is something when, people send me these plants to test, and with a plant like this, when it's not in the right spot and yet it's doing what it's doing, imagine if you put this where it really loved the conditions. Imagine what it would look like. All right, moving to plant number 2. Watering, watering, watering. Well, as another tomato soaks up the water, I wanted to show you something that didn't work out too well related to watering. This is a cool weather crop, a Chinese cabbage, and I'd been traveling, and so we had, again, a long period without rain, and these things did what we call bolting. So the plant, when it gets cool weather plant, when it gets into panic mode, it gets hot and dry, it wants to procreate, make more, and so it sends up the seed stalk. When it does, the leaves are bitter and inedible. So basically, unless you're going to save the seed, these are just going to come out, and I'm going to have to figure out something else for this spot. And this is part of gardening. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. If these would have been better mulched and watered before I left, they'd probably still be okay. Into the compost with these. Okay, plant number 3. Watering, watering, watering. Okay, another plant. Watering, watering, watering. This is so much fun. This is usually how I do it, where I'll just be watering, moving that hose every 10 minutes and do these other garden jobs. We have been doing some harvesting in the garden. Last week's lettuce has been harvested along with some of these peas, and we had a nice salad, which, it's one of the reasons we garden. And today we're going to harvest these garlic scapes. And last year, with the help of our friend from Davey Tree, we made a garlic scape pesto. And the reason we're taking these off is that now the plant will not be using its energy to make seeds, but it's going to make bigger bulbs. And I've got hundreds of these to get. And if you're interested in that recipe, you could just check out that episode. Oh man, it smells so good. This is basically the same thing we did with our tulips, deadheading them so that the energy goes down to the bulb. But you know, besides the garlic scape pesto, you can just actually grill these things, put them in a little olive oil, put them on the grill, they'll soften up. Absolutely wonderful. Essential to do this if you're a garlic grower. Used to throw these things in the compost, but now they're a delicacy. Well, a couple more beautiful mistakes in the garden. These were some of the bulbs that were planted not too late. These were planted in December, but these are some brand new plants. I wanted to see what they look like in the garden. This is Alpine Rosy Bells, and this is a Lavender Mountain Lily. And I think normally they would bloom a little earlier in the season if they were planted at the right time, but I think they're pretty cool. I might plant them again. Well, you know, I'm really into mulching, and when we get dry weather like this, I was waiting for this lettuce to get big enough to mulch. And in the vegetable garden, I love straw, and that's what we're going to use here. This makes a big difference as far as how often you're going to have to water, keeping the soil evenly moist and keeping weeds down too. Probably water these again, get this mulch wet. Now when I came back from my trip, the first thing I saw in the garden, 2 rabbits. And it took me 10 minutes to chase them out of here. It's all fenced in, but I had to kind of herd them out to the gate there. Even though the garden's fenced in, I'm going to fence in my lettuce so they don't get it. A fenced in garden. I love these little bamboo stakes you can get at the nursery for this. And you know, rabbits are pretty easy to keep out. I mean, not keep out, but keep out of this. They're not going to try and dig under here or anything. When these plants get big enough and I can figure out where they're coming in and coming out, we'll deal with that then. This is Niobi Clematis, and it's one of my favorites. I bought it for $5 at Kmart back when Martha Stewart was teaming with Kmart, and she was bringing in all these cool plants. This clematis will bloom now, but then again in the fall if you deadhead it, and it's just a real beauty. Once clematis gets going, when those roots get established, there's no stopping them, and they just become this wonderful perennial that pop up this time of the year. So for anything that's planted in the ground, we're watering about once a week, really soaking them in. But containers, it could be every day if we don't get rain. Bigger containers like this, not quite as often, but again, same sort of thing. We want to just soak it in. And the thing about containers, and I'll show you, I like to fertilize them every time I water them, but I water first and then put on my liquid fertilizer so that it's kind of soaking up that fertilizer instead of just pouring out the bottom. And so do both sides. Go back and forth a couple times until it starts dripping out the bottom. These plants have taken a beating since I haven't been here. Watering, watering, watering. All right, let's get the fertilizer and mix it up. So we've talked about this fertilizer before. It's called Dramatic with 2 M's from the Dram Corporation. They're not paying me to tell you about this. I just love this stuff. It's fish-based. I've mixed some up. Let's put a little on our containers. Don't need a lot. All right, I got some more containers to fertilize, water and fertilize. Get some on here. On the other side of the garden. Again, we really want to soak the plants in. Make sure they're getting what they need. All right, need to mix up more of this. Water is good. Watering, watering, watering. And here's the last of our strange summer daffodils. If you want to know more about this, check out last week's episode. Oh man, that smells good. Well, here's an old-fashioned shrub that's gone out of favor, but you should grow this. It's called mock orange because it smells like an orange tree blooming, and that fragrance is amazing. It's tough as nails, deer resistant, and some of the newer varieties, I guess, don't have fragrance, but I've got these growing all around the property. They need nothing from the gardener. Oh man, that smells good. Now it's time for Talking Trees from the Davey Tree Expert Company. I'm joined again by Rob Kruljac. He's an assistant district manager for the Pittsburgh North office for the Davey Tree Expert Company. And Rob, we've been watering all day, but before we get to watering, it finally happened to me.
What's that, Doug?
Lyme disease.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they got it early. I'm on the antibiotics. I hope that's going to take care of it, but let's talk ticks.
You know, they're in the leaf litter, they're in these woods edges, and they're everywhere. I mean, hasn't been a problem, 15 years ago, you never knew about it. But yeah, climate change and everything, they're here now.
So for you, for somebody who works outdoors like I do all the time, is there anything special you're doing to protect yourself?
A few things. You can use some sort of repellent, right,
Yeah.
with permethrin in it. A lot of times if I'm on a site, I'll wear, I like to wear light colored pants so I can see them. I'll tuck my pants into my socks so that if they're coming up my legs, I can catch them before maybe they get anywhere else. And most importantly is just taking a shower at the end of every day. The sooner you can get it off you, the better.
All right, watering. So how important is it for trees?
Very. I mean, I'm sure you noticed we're in a bit of a drought right now. And, compounding factors are what usually lead to tree mortality. So, we had an early warm up in the winter, right? And trees started to bloom, right? And then we got hit with a cold snap. So we have a ton of winter damage this year on your boxwoods, on, ginkgos, you name it. Nothing is safe from some winter damage. And now we're in a drought period. So getting some water on your trees, a slow trickle, just let the hose run out so it saturates the soil around, especially around like the critical root zone, around the base of the tree. Very important right now.
So especially for newly planted trees, right? If you got trees in the spring, you better get water on them.
Yeah, and those trees should be watered every day, whether, if we're not getting rain every day. But even your mature trees, they've lasted through this stuff through the ages, but it's still the most inexpensive plant healthcare product out there. Just put some water on your plants.
How long should I let that hose trickle along?
Depending on the size of the tree, 20 minutes to an hour. Soaker hoses on your larger diameter trees, you can do something like that around it. One of the rainbow sprinklers to just saturate that soil. And you want it to be a slow, you don't want to just stand there with the hose and blast the soil away. Let it go in slowly so it saturates the soil around that tree.
And of course, we've already talking about it today in the vegetable garden, mulching. Certainly important for our trees and shrubs.
Exactly, this helps preserve that moisture in the soil once you get the water down.
And that mulch should never touch the bottom of the tree. Should look like a donut, not a volcano.
There you go.
You've taught me.
Absolutely.
Right.
Glad you're listening.
Thank you, my friend.
Good seeing you.
Now
Thanks,
that's the way to shake hands, so
well,
you know.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Well, I hope where you're gardening, you're getting all the rain you need. Until next week, keep planting, and we'll see you then.